Great. So Niti may show up still, but I think we'll get started on this. And I'm actually going to just, let's see, stop this one. All right. So I guess first let's introduce ourselves, or I'll introduce you, and maybe you can just raise your hand. So up in my top left-hand corner is Nihal George, who goes to Rose Holman, and he's a rising junior, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Good. Yeah. That's probably not going to work for all of you. So that's Rose Holman, and then on my far right corner is Harsh Ketan. Wave Harsh. Harsh is frozen. Okay, so Harsh is the frozen one. Okay, there he is.
Am I good now?
Yes, you're good.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right.
So Harsh is graduated from Georgia Tech. Just graduated though, right?
Yep. 2 months ago.
Okay. And so he's our only representative from large public university. So I know that some people are going to be very interested in those areas, and also just graduated and working. So I think hopefully we'll hear some about that also. And then next is Rohan Malangi. There he is. And he's going to Brandeis, and he is a rising sophomore. Awesome. See, I'm not that old yet. And then, of course, we have Ria Sirdeshmukh, who is a rising junior at Vassar College. So we've got a lot of different kinds of colleges here, which I'm excited about, and hoping we can kind of bring in those different perspectives. We don't have a lot of people that have joined so far, but it's India, so they may come late. But one way or the other, I'm recording this, and it's going to go out to a whole bunch of people. So I really appreciate your guys' advice. On Friday, I got to connect with Harsh a little bit and just realized I need to do a lot more of this, and, you know, kind of personal interviews and create a whole library of resources, because it was just amazing in 10 minutes, things that I had learned. And so I'm probably going to hit you guys up again for more of this kind of stuff. But today, what I was hoping to do is start with, I'm going to start with something that I think is useful, but since I'm most interested in your guys' feedback and advice to students, I'll start with this because not everybody will have joined, and I want them to hear you guys speak. So we'll start with kind of just a little slideshow that I put together about a very common experience I find when students go to college. There can be a downtime either in the first semester or sometime in the first year. And, you know, I think it's really great to know that that's very common, because a lot of times when you're in it, you feel like you're the only one in it in the whole world, and everybody else on campus looks like they're the happiest people in the world. So I love to kind of just bring this out right in the beginning and say that you're definitely not alone. Now, I don't know if any of you presenters felt that yourself, but I can guess that if you didn't even feel it yourself, you probably knew somebody who did. So I'd love any feedback after I finish that presentation on any experiences that you guys have had or known people to have. And then I've kind of organized some questions around 4 different areas, which I'll roughly categorize as before the summer before they go to college, and then kind of that settling in period. And then I've got some questions related to academics and how it was different from high school, and any strategies or tips that you have for keeping up with academics and the differences when you get to college. And then I thought kind of more like in the groove. So maybe second semester or even into second year, got some questions related to that. And as I mentioned, I might just kind of throw them out there to the group, and if anybody has something to say, just kind of raise up and we can take in one by one. And then, you know, actually probably before, well, you know what? No, I think I'll wait till after, or maybe after some of these questions, we'll kind of jump into each of your experiences, because some of you have shared some kind of unique experiences that you've had. And I'd love to kind of just kind of throw it to you for 2-3 minutes to share some of those experiences. So like that, I think we'll probably go for maybe an hour to an hour and a half. And also for those of you who are here already, If you have any questions for any of us, please just throw them in the chat room. And I think as much as possible, we'll try to keep on mute unless you're talking. And I promise not to be the only one talking. Okay, so let me just, I want to share my screen here. And I'll go into this presentation, and hopefully we'll have some more people join us by the end of this. All right. Okay, so I kind of imagined this in the shape of a U, not the least of which because U stands for university. So the way I kind of picture this is when you first start college, you're kind of on the top of this U. And, you know, it feels wonderful. You're going through orientation. I call this the honeymoon stage. It's, you know, I think all the presenters will talk about how exciting it is the very first part of school. You're busy. You've got lots of things keeping your attention, registration, housing, you're meeting new people. And all the things that are different are actually pretty exciting at first. But then at some point, you find yourself on the bottom of this U. And it happens at different times. You know, I've got plenty of stories of students coming back after the first semester telling me, you know, I hate this college and I hate the town it's in and all the kids are stupid and I don't want to stay here. You got to help me transfer, you know, and transfer by next year. And, you know, my answer always is, that's really impressive that you've met everybody at college already, because I know that they actually haven't. But it's a real effect. And, you know, sometimes it can just feel like everybody's different. You're missing the experience of high school and your friends that you had. And then these stupid social networks, you see everybody else is having a great time when you're not having a good time. And you feel like, oh, so I ended up at the wrong place. Somewhere else would be better. So I guess the most important thing to remember about the U is that a lot of people experience that. They may get it in different times, but there are times where you're going to feel down or overwhelmed or whatever else. And so the most important thing I can say right now is it's not a unique experience. If you're there, know that a lot of people are going through it, and you will get out of it. And that's why it's a U. So at some point you start to kind of feel like, okay, you know, how do I integrate, you know, how do I find the friends? How do I find the people that I'm going to be around? And ultimately, I think those are the steps that you're taking to kind of get out of the bottom of the U. And I'd love to hear any advice that any of the presenters have. But for me, a lot of times, the way that you need to do that is just engage in things, you know, whether it's a club, organization, sports, fraternity, sorority, just something that you start to kind of get out of your shell, get out of your little dorm. And if you're connecting and meeting other people, you know, that momentum is going to take you out of that downward spiral that you've been in. And then you'll be back up at the top of the U, hence the U. And I think it can happen pretty quickly if you're able to kind of make those connections early on, get involved. But, you know, most important thing I would kind of point out about this is that it's really a matter of you recognizing you're not in this alone, and things will change. You know, sometimes it happens only by that last, by the first summer, you know, when you get back to India, if you come back to India, and you realize that, like, oh my God, this summer is so long and I can't wait to get back to college. But anyway, I wanted to share that, and I would love to hear from any of the presenters, any experiences that they've had, or anybody who you might know who's gone through this, either friends at other schools or students that you found in your school. Does anybody have anything they could share on that? Yeah, Ria.
Yeah, no, so something that I felt about that was that everyone said that the U happens like you hate it first semester, like by the end of first semester, but my U was like extended. And it wasn't like it wasn't like totally low or anything. It was just like second semester of college. It just started getting like all the excitement was going, and like there was no change suddenly. So I get like I relate to the thing where you should go and do stuff outside of what you're already doing and outside of your comfort zone. So like join clubs that you would never join. And like, so sophomore year has been amazing, but freshman year, second semester was hard for me. So it's like, even if your first semester is amazing, like the U can happen whenever. So just like when it happens, like go out and do stuff.
Cool. And so you definitely do validate that point. I was saying that sometimes it can feel like you're the only one experiencing this and everybody else seems really happy.
Yeah. Especially if it happens at a different time than everyone else. Then it's just, yeah.
Cool. Anybody else have anything to share?
Well, sure. Yeah. So I'm at least a little more introverted. And for me, the thing that really caused some of this was there's just so many new things that are changing. And what I found that really helped me was to just have one or two things that are a constant and add some stability. So for me, it was working out. And there are definitely times where you feel down and out. And I don't find it as easy to engage with people. And so I found working out as something that was always there, always stable. And it really kind of helped me go through the bottom part of that U cycle like you were talking about.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that was Harsh, who, for those of you just joined us, just graduated from Georgia Tech. And I do see Kartik has joined, so that's a large public university, and Harsh will be a good person to kind of connect with on any questions you have. For those of you just joined, if you have any questions that you want me to ask a little later, just add them to the chat window and I will. Cool. Anything else, Nihal, Rohan, did you want to add anything to that? Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah, I can go. So for me, second semester was also the killer. For me, at least, the main problem was actually, the thing I have to recommend most is when you're picking your classes, most colleges make the student surveys and replies available. Now, for me, I had 2 classes which literally were just like destroying me in terms of academics and everything, especially because I had a pretty good first semester. So one of the things which is most important that you do going into every semester is to go over pretty much every class you're considering in terms of student surveys. Because even if the class itself is a good topic, whatever, some of the professors are literally idiots and are trying to make you fail. So my recommendation is also the U will come, and it can come in a way that you have bad grades, in my case, and then everything else is just going to come together and pretty much kill you. Like I started feeling homesick and everything just got really bad. So just be really careful when you pick your classes, guys.
Awesome. And I just want to add that Rohan is not one of those kids who went to the US for 1 year and suddenly had an American accent. He grew up in America. So he's okay. Cool. So any other, yeah, Nihal.
So I don't think my U was like that big of a down, and it happened kind of early on. Basically, a lot of my friends were rushing fraternities because it's a big part of Thoreau's campus, and that's just not something I seemed interested in early on. So I was pretty bored when they came back and I was done with all my homework and they were doing their homework. So like I had really nothing to do. But then after a point I realized, hey, if all my friends are interested in this, maybe I am. So that's when I started to actually go out of my way to do more things. And it doesn't have to be a fraternity or something. It could be clubs. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Like what Ria said, just go out and do things. And most places will have like a club fair or something early on. I think it's important to go to those and just sign up for clubs that you're even partly interested in. You don't have to actually go to the meetings after that, but you'll get like a billion emails. That's the one down.
Awesome. Okay, so that was reflective in 2 ways. I didn't know that students at Rose-Hulman ever stopped their homework, so that was good to know too. All right, I want to go into some of the questions that I had. So as I said, I've kind of broken these into different groups, and I would like to start with kind of summer before you go to college. You guys can really help me out here because a lot of people ask me what they should be doing, or I should say a lot of parents ask me what their students should be doing before, what their kids should be doing before they go to college. And, at the end of the day, most of you guys have been kicking butt all the way up to your final exams. And I think just, finally, this is a summer that you actually can relax a little bit. So that's obviously important. But when I'm asking these questions, I guess for you guys, just reflect back on, is there anything different that you would do, in thinking back on the summer before you went to college? Anybody have anything to, well, all right, I'll ask a couple questions and you guys can kind of respond to any of these that you want. So is there anything different that you would do the summer before you went to college? And maybe tell us, did your parents or one of your parents drop you off? If they did, any advice you'd have on that? Because I kind of know that once you start orientation, you're off into the wild, and there's not much you can do with your parents at that time. But I guess let me start with those two questions. Anything different that you would do the summer before, and any advice to people that are going with their parents or just going on their own? Anybody have anything? Crickets.
I guess if my parents went to drop me off, and I would say that if your parents are going with you, once orientation starts and you all kind of move into your student housing or wherever, it's important that you stay at student housing instead of going back and staying with your parents if they're there for a week or more once it starts. Because that initial period, there's a bunch of kids who are all in the same boat. And so it's really nice because everyone wants to meet each other and interact and become friends. And you might miss out on that period if you're in a class and then going back and staying with your parents for a week or so, and then really move into your student housing. So I would recommend, even if your parents are there, maybe see them once a day, but don't stay with them once you're allowed to move in.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. You make a lot of good friends. What did you guys do during your summer before? Was it just the relaxed part?
Yeah, I can go. The one thing I would change is that I would have hung out with my friends more than I did the summer before I went to college. Because
your friends back in India.
Yeah, my friends here in India. Just the summer before college, at least in my opinion, there's not really that much you can do. I mean, maybe you can revise math or like some subject before you go in so you don't go in completely blind. But honestly, just try and relax. In my case, I went for a pre-orientation program way before. I had this all expenses paid thing. And then I ended up just, moving in without parents or anything. And it's really not a big deal if you move in without your parents. You just go in, put your stuff down, set your bed up, just put your stuff away. It's not really a big deal to be with or without your parents. So don't get stressed about setting up your room and everything. Most cases, I think a lot of people choose their roommates too. I didn't in my case, but if you did choose your roommate, they'll probably be there to help you out with setting up your room or whatever, if that's what you're worried about. Yeah.
Cool. And just in a follow-up question, that Janani has asked is, what advice would you wished you had had before you joined college? Is there anything that you wished somebody, maybe specifically from your college, had told you, or anything that you wish you would have known before you started college? Yeah, Nihal.
Might be a little bit late for a lot of you now, but trying to get credit, like just placing out of easy courses or humanities courses, if you have to take those, that's one thing I wish I'd done. So if like your college has placement exams for easy classes, I'd recommend you study up and take those, just so that you get registration priority later by having more credits, and B, not having to go through Calc 1 again if you've already done the equivalent in school.
Great, cool. Anything else? Is there anything that if you do go with your parents that you remember that you got done with them, like opening a bank account, or, because most of you guys don't have cars when you first get there. Is there anything that's kind of convenient to have somebody who has a car or can tote you around? Is there any specific things that come to mind? Yeah, no.
Setting up a phone and bank account are like the two big ones that you need or it's much easier with your parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ria, you had something?
And also, so Vassa's in this really small town. Small town in terms of like number of people in the town, but it's a really spread out town for some reason. So like Target is like a 25-minute drive away. So you literally like need someone to like take you back and forth. If you're an international, a lot of schools have international orientation before that. So at Vassa, we have like people can help you get stuff from Target, and we have buses going back and forth during international orientation. So if you don't have your parents, like your international orientation people will take care of everything. But I think like having my parents around to like drive mirrors back and forth and fans. Oh my God, fans are such a big thing. So I'm in New York, and when I reached there, it was like 45 degrees, like no kidding. So we literally like, go get a fan. Like when you reach, go get yourself a fan. It's so important.
Because they didn't have air conditioning?
No, yeah. No ceiling fans, no air conditioning. So you're just sitting in the heat, which even Bangalore, it's like we're not used to the heat here. And we still have fans and air conditioning. But in a dorm, we didn't have all of that. So we were literally boiling. So go get yourself a fan when you arrive.
Yeah. And I guess to extend that, are there any other things that, you know, when you first move into a dorm, you should be thinking about? Like, I know a lot of times kids get a mini fridge, but then again, you're often sharing a dorm, so you don't want to like have like too many things in the dorm. Any advice related to that? Any things that, you know, you think people should think about or check on, even to the point of like sheets and pillows and stuff like that? Yeah, Rohan?
Okay, so one thing which I'd recommend that a lot of you check out is going on Ria's point about the fan, is my college had a thing. You just look it up online. It was pretty much a college bedding program. So another company coordinates with the college, and it gets you a huge box with literally all the bedding, pillows, covers, towels, a fan, pretty much everything you need, and at a discount too, compared to like the normal rate. So you should check if your college has a program like that, because they'll literally deliver that box to your doorstep at college. So you just take the box, you have everything you need there. You don't need to worry about that sort of thing. Wait, Prab, sorry, what did you just mention just now? I had a follow-up to that.
Like not having too much stuff in the dorm, or kind of coordinating with your roommate on what you get and they get.
So if you have, most colleges have the housing portal access online. If you were assigned a random roommate, most colleges will give you the email and the name, you know, of your roommate. So connect with them on some social media, and if they don't have social media, which my roommates didn't, just email them and start getting in contact with them about like everything you plan to have for your room. That's honestly just the best thing to do.
Awesome. Yeah, and on the sheets thing, I know a lot of times the beds in a dorm might be an unusual shape or something, so it's better to get it from the college because they'll give you the kind of sheets that are going to actually fit the beds. Cool. Anything else to add on that? Things to bring, not to bring? How many people have a refrigerator in their dorm? And did you have to get it yourself, or you rented it, or?
I got mine myself with my roommate. We went 50-50. And
Oh, okay. And Rohan?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Freshman year, the fridges were already in the dorm, but I got one sophomore year when I was no longer living on campus. I think it's essential.
Yeah. Late night snacks. Yeah, Rohan, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, my college had a fridge rental program too, and a bunch of my friends' colleges had the same thing. So you can, especially if you're an international student and you don't want to take up too much storage over the summer because it's not like super cheap. Probably your best bet would be just split it 50-50 or 33-33 if you have 3 roommates, to just rent a mini fridge from college, because being international and having a lot of things in your room, you need to worry about storing them over the summer too. So that's something which you should be considering at least a decent amount when you're setting up everything for your room.
Good point. Yeah, go ahead, Ria.
Yeah, so I don't have a fridge, and that's because we have 20 people per floor in my dorm, and we have 2 kitchens every floor. So 10 people use a floor, and those are people you live around and like you know really well. So a lot of dorms, you don't use the common kitchen and like their fridge and their oven and everything. But in our dorm we actually do. So that's why I was gonna get a fridge freshman year, but then I didn't because I didn't think it was essential for a small college like Vassar.
Awesome.
So that's it.
Yeah, kitchen, that kind of reminded me of another thing. And since we're still talking in the summer before you go to college, I'm really kind of pushing, because my kid's going to go to college next year, and I'm telling him, like, learn to cook at least 3 really good meals, you know, or at least like learn how to cook some eggs and, you know, anything more complicated than ramen, because you probably are going to have facility to a kitchen somewhere, or at least in the second year. What do you guys say about that? Do you guys know how to cook some stuff? And oh, wait, and I could say for Harsh, let me just throw that to you, because he and I are on the same tip on terms of crock pots. Crock pots rock. Harsh.
Oh yeah, I think that's it's a must-have, because they're really, really simple. They're nothing fancy. You don't need to learn how to cook extravagant meals. But they're really nice in that you start your meal in the mornings, and then you just let it run, and you go out to class and you come back at 3 or 4 and your meal's there and it's ready to eat. And it's a cheaper alternative than getting lunch from outside all day. And they usually are pretty healthy meals that you can make in those. So yeah, that's the single best kitchen related item I bought. I bought mine my second year, and I used that thing all 4 or all 5 years that I was there. So I would highly recommend getting one of those, and at least knowing a few easy but healthy recipes that you can use on it.
Yeah, totally. So a crock pot is a slow cooker. For those of you who don't know, it's like a ceramic pot that goes inside of like something that looks like a rice cooker. And you can find a million recipes online, and they're usually super simple, like 4 different ingredients. But you can just plug that in your dorm, and the thing will cook. You know, you cook for like 7-8 hours, but they rock. And anybody else got cooking stories? You're gonna miss your Indian food, I'll tell you that. Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah, so I didn't learn how to cook like the summer before, but I would recommend that, just like Harsh, you buy something like a crock pot and you do know a few things to cook. Also, when it comes to ramen, at least in my opinion, like the American ramen brands you buy suck compared to Maggi. Literally just buy some Maggi and take it over there, because I cannot eat that American ramen stuff. It tastes so bad compared to Maggi, in my opinion. I don't know if that's how it is for you guys, but I would recommend you just take like at least some packs of Maggi with you when you go, because it is a hassle when Indian store to buy things.
I've gotten that advice from past students too, and they've actually said that you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy Indian Maggi on Amazon in the US. So, yeah, Ria.
You can also buy Maggi masala packets and add them to ramen. So you can only just take the masala and it saves space. Right. But I don't know how to cook, and you should actually check how your dining services work in your college. So some people have meal swipes. You can only swipe like 2 times a day or something like that. And so Vassar has unlimited swipes now. So you could just like go into the dining hall, and then like you can study there, and like we chill there, and like that's like, it's like a socializing spot. So I've never actually had to cook, because you can always just go whenever you're hungry, and there's always people there and stuff like that. So you should actually check whether you can use your dining hall whenever, or whether it's like swipe only. So yeah.
So Nahal, do you have anything to add? Because I ate at Rose, and I wasn't too impressed with the food at Rose Holman.
Yeah, unfortunately, for at least at Rose, you've got like 19 meal swipes for your freshman year every week. So that's practically every meal covered. And then once a week you go out with some people for Saturday dinners. Other than that, I just like having some snacks around in my room, not necessarily the healthy stuff, but just, you know, when it's late night, you want something to eat. Low effort to cook, if any effort.
Okay.
I stick to Pop-Tarts.
Harsh, did you have something to add?
Yeah, and also I underestimated, if you're in a big city with a reasonably large Indian population like Atlanta or even Chicago, then there's a surprising number of Indian stores that you can walk to or just take the bus to. so yeah, that was something that I didn't know and didn't expect. But if you're going into one of these big cities with a reasonable Indian population, there's actually good access to all sorts of Indian food, and it's not that inconvenient to go and get some.
Cool. That seems like a good transition into the settling in part of my questions. For those of you who just joined, if you have any specific questions you want to ask, just pop them to me in the chat window and I'll get to them when I can. I know, Nihal, that you got a job. Not sure about the rest of you. Any advice you have about that? I know sometimes it can be challenging because as an international student, you can only work on campus. Any advice you'd have on that?
Well, so my thing about the job, even if you don't really need the money from it, it's a good experience and like you can learn a lot from it. Plus, like I feel that when I'm spending my own money, like there's a certain satisfaction I get from it. That's a lot better. If you are interested in getting a job on campus, do some research about it before you go there to see what jobs are available to international students, because at most colleges, it's just going to be a limited amount. That said, those jobs generally tend to fill up real fast. So once you're there, if you're interested in something, just apply for it right away. And then if you get it, that's good. Otherwise, you could try again next year or something. I don't know.
And is it on kind of like a semester by semester basis?
Not for me, no. Now that I've got it, unless I get fired, which I really hope I don't, I've got it until I graduate.
Anybody else? Any advice on jobs? How much do you feel like you could work or whatever, Ria?
So a job would give you a social security number, which helps you open a bank account, get a driver's license, stuff. So it helps to have a job. I don't have a job yet because it is competitive if you're an international student. Plus, they take financial aid into account. So if you're on financial aid, it's much easier to get a job, and those jobs also fill up faster. So yeah, so it's like it takes a while to get a job, and sometimes you get a shitty job, but just take it for a semester so you get a social security number. So yeah.
I had a question.
Oh yeah, somebody from the audience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, this is Shruti. So the thing is, how do you exactly manage your time when you have a job, like along with your courses and everything? So like, any tips on managing time and with jobs and internships on your,
Yep. Anybody have anything to add there? Yeah, no.
So you're at least at Rose, and I think at most places, your job, you only have to work like a couple of days or nights, and those won't be for very long. Like I work 2 nights a week for 3.5 hours. And even over there, when I'm not doing anything, I can always do my homework, so it's not too bad. That said, there will be jobs like tour guides of the place where you have to be engaged the whole time. But even then, you're not just going to be giving people tours. You'll still be going to classes, and you have enough time at the end of the day to work on it. Like if you need to make time, you always can. Like you can start sleeping less if you need.
Just related to that. Oh yeah, go ahead, Ria.
No, I just wanted to say that there are jobs which like help academically or like enrich your resume, like being a research assistant and stuff. And then there's other jobs which you just be doing mindless work where you can do your own homework. If you get a job which isn't either of those two things, then at least at VASA, I've seen that like a few of my friends are struggling trying to like balance time and also trying to do like research at the side or like trying to do their studies and everything. So get a job which either is like mindless and you can do homework, or that helps in terms of like that.
Great. Yeah. And so I think some of the opportunities there might be in like math labs or reading labs where you can kind of tutor and you can study in between when kids aren't coming in. Also, just to emphasize Ria's point about research internships, it's super hard to kind of get any meaningful paid internship after the first or maybe even second year that you're in college because you haven't really done your higher level subjects yet. So, getting a research internship with a professor who you've made a connection with over the summer, that's usually only like 4 to 6 weeks anyway. And you won't have to, often you don't have to pay. And, so you can be there for free. You won't necessarily get paid, but it looks good on your resume and can help with your further summer internship opportunities. Yeah, Rohan, did you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna add something. So when it comes to the jobs, at least in my college, if you're also on some scholarship, when you go in for the jobs, they also have the university has told them to preferentially not take kids on scholarship. So if you're on any type of scholarship, you're also a little bit, you're sort of screwed when it comes to the job department, especially with the limited jobs on campus. I don't know if this is how it works at all colleges, but it is how it works at mine, and it's a bit of a hassle. But when it comes to getting like meaningful jobs also, as Prab said, pretty much making a connection with a professor by either performing academically well in a class or just by going to office hours is probably your best bet to grab some sort of job, either being a TA or a research assistant. And at least I didn't get a job, but my friends who did said easily their consideration, like Ria said, for the best jobs is the desk jobs where you just go in and you pretty much just like sit at the desk and watch as people come in. You just get tons of time to do your homework and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Ria?
And also about the research assistant jobs. So I don't have a job as a research assistant, but I get credit being a research assistant because there's a limited number of jobs that they would give because they have to give you money. But there's other ways to do research. So if you have any opportunity, like go for it, because research like adds a lot and it is hard to like get research positions. So in whatever way you can do research, you should go for it.
Agreed. Yeah, it really helps the resume and helps for later potential jobs. Wanted to talk a little bit about roommates, and this could expand to like how to deal, kind of really how to approach, living with somebody you've never met before. Sometimes people are considering kind of meeting up with somebody before and being roommates with them. Also, anything that you'd have to add about, just etiquette living with somebody, or things that were different because they're from some Midwest town, anything that you might think about, or again, either in your experiences or things that through people and friends that you've been with. I know it's always a big scary thing the summer before when you're thinking about, I'm going to go and live with somebody who I don't even know. Whatever you can add, nightmares, good stories, whatever. Anybody? Yeah.
So Vassar has a thing called a roommate contract that you have to sign at the beginning of the year. So you like put down rules for both of you that you sign at the beginning of the year. So even if your college doesn't do it, it might be weird, but you should like go over some like ground rules, like even about like, I don't know, like sex and stuff. Like you need to like, you want to know like what your roommate's okay with and like what you're okay with doing, and like that can be like a gray area, or like having parties in the room. So if you like talk about it and like there is open communication between you and your roommate, like you can generally resolve everything. So yeah, just like communicate and like set rules down in the beginning.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah, Nahal?
I'd say be a little bit accommodating with them, because like if things start to get weird, they're probably feeling it too. And like if they're a neat freak and you're really messy, just start cleaning up a little bit after yourself. And if it's the other way around, be open with them. Tell them like you'd like them to keep their half of the room a little bit better. And yeah, like Ria said, I think communication's a big thing. But yeah, just being open up front and accommodating. Those are my 3 big tips.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, Rohan.
All right, so I had a roommate horror story where I was in the room when my roommate, all right, I'm just making sure like my parents aren't at the door or anything because they don't know about this, but this dude, so I'm at the top while I was in the room, like masturbate while I was in the room. All right, so that was a horror story. And now when it comes to horror, so I talked to him about it and he literally dropped out of college 2 days later. I don't know if it was related, but okay, that's what happened. But communication with your roommates is so damn key. I'm telling you, you have to be like talking with them about anything which makes you uncomfortable pretty much immediately, because if you wait a few days on it, they're going to think it's less of a deal than it actually is. Also, most colleges for room transfers, it is not as daunting of a task as it seems to be to get a room transfer if you really need it. Because I went and talked to like my people, and after they heard the incident, they were willing to move me immediately. He dropped out, so I didn't end up moving out. But it is not as hard as it seems to get a room transfer. So if you are feeling super uncomfortable and there's nothing you can do about it, I implore you to just go and talk to DCL, or my place called Department of Community Living, DCL. Just talk to them and try and move out or something. And if it's really bad, you can always just like, DCL will take some time. So go and stay in your friend's room or something if it's really feeling that bad. Honestly, it can get terrible.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd agree. They usually are really accommodating if something's going horrible. So I would recommend if things start going south and you can't fix it, then just go speak to your RA or PL or even higher ups. I think at Georgia Tech, at least, we had a student on each floor who was like a housing representative, like an RA. And then there was also a guy who lived in each building, like an actual man who was a housing employee, and they were called like housing directors or something. And if you go to them and say, hey, I'm having this issue and can't seem to fix it, I'm miserable staying where I am, they usually are really good about it, and they will try to transfer you as soon as they can. So don't think you're stuck. You're not really stuck. You can always try and get something done.
Awesome. Staying with the theme of settling in, are there any things that you can think about that students accidentally or because they don't know spend too much money on, or just, any kind of expenses that kind of side-swacked you and you didn't expect? Anything that you would recommend people be careful about? And I guess a follow-up to that would be, do you have a sense of, beside from the money your parents are paying for the school and dorm and food and everything, any sense of kind of like how much other money you need? I know it varies from person to person, but, just eating out, Nahal, you mentioned kind of Saturdays, weekends, you guys go out to eat. Any kind of a round amount, how much, you kind of need in a month?
Obviously it varies place to place. Like my friend at UCLA spends a whole lot more than I do, but I think my expenses personally would come up to about $200 a month, everything included. And it's like eating out, snacks, miscellaneous purchases, stuff. So yeah, if you're looking at a small Midwest town, that would be.
Any other ranges people can, Ria?
So I'm in a small town close to New York, and there's not much to do outside of like Vassar. So once my parents pay like room and board and my meal plan, so my meal plan also has like dining bucks to go off campus. So when we eat off campus, we also use that to like swipe. So I actually like don't spend that much at all. Like, and we don't have Uber in upstate New York, so I need someone to like drive me around and stuff like that. So I don't know, like $50 per month for like Target stuff, like shampoo and stuff like that. But apart from that, nothing. Like, and that's like one of the good things about being in a like not in a big city, because my friends in New York City like party like crazy, and then it like all adds up. But because I'm in the middle of nowhere, I don't spend.
You mentioned Uber. That's like a good example of something that, I always laugh when I go back and look at my credit card in the States when my Uber drives in India. It's like, $1.50, 75 cents. But Uber in the States is quite expensive. So any other things like that just kind of surprises you? Telephone bill also can be pretty expensive. Any other things that pop into your head? Just trying to alert people. Yeah, Rohan?
Yeah, so I guess number one recommendation is always buy used books, because that's probably the biggest way. Amazon rental is really good for those of you who don't know about it. It's pretty much $20 for the entire semester you get your books. So just pretty much try to make sure your book expenses don't really go too high. Sometimes unavoidable for online coursework and stuff, but you can really try and minimize your book expenses. Yeah, for me, I don't really eat out much because my campus is really good about like on-campus restaurants, and we also have points which we can use for the on-campus store. So I guess my expenses not count. Also, if you're going to a cold place like Boston, which is where I am, 10 minutes out of Boston, I'm in Brandeis, so you need to have a decent budget set out to buy yourself good, high quality, like at least medium quality winter clothing. For me, it came out to maybe maybe like 200, 250 having to buy all my winter clothing. And that was after I have like 14 size feet. So I get all of my like foot clothing, like shoes and socks. I don't know what foot clothing is. Pretty much at a huge discount. So I got all of that stuff at 60, but for most people it comes out to like way higher than that. So just you have to first semester be understanding of the fact, like, and talk to your parents too if you don't get a job, that you need a bunch of money for winter clothes and stuff like that. And also just other things will crop up, like coat hangers and all those things you're just going to need to buy in your first semester. After the first semester, like expenses are probably going to go down because you're going to understand how everything works. But yeah, you should have a decent budget. I'd say for me, it was like $800 for first semester, which I had to like go through to get everything I needed. So yeah.
Yeah, winter clothes is no joke. There's nothing in Bangalore that's going to keep you warm in Boston and upstate New York. Yeah, Ria?
Yeah, adding on to both the things Rohan said. So a lot of colleges have Facebook groups where you can like buy books from seniors who've already taken the class, or like, so VASA has like something called textbook exchange and stuff like that. So join those groups because seniors give books for much cheaper, and it's like in not bad condition because you only use it for semester, and it's not worth spending that much for a semester again. So actually like use those groups. And about the coat and the boots and stuff like that, like invest in a good pair because you literally wear it for like 3 months straight and you're just wearing the same thing again and again and again. So like use your money wisely, but like spend and buy a good pair, like good set of winter stuff.
There's one other question that's come on the chat about kind of how the learning is different in college versus high school, the way that professors teach, learning styles. Is there any advice the students asking about how you pay attention to those differences, and anything that you'd share that kind of surprised you or that you had to get used to? And one thing I guess I could add on to that is just, what is it like, let's see, you guys have all gone through IB or CBSC. So basically a 2-year curriculum with 5 to 6 subjects, and then suddenly you jumped into school with 4 to 6 courses every 4 months. Anything to say about either of those two things? Any advice? Yeah, Ria?
So professors have something called office hours, and like freshman year you feel like you're too cool to go to office hours and like I don't want to meet a professor after class and everything, but actually go to office hours because they help. Like you just like talk about stuff and like you get ideas for papers and stuff like that. So like use office hours. And also something that I found weird like for the first couple of months is that you should, at least at VASA, we have to do reading before every class, and like that reading like piles up and you get like sick of it and you're like I don't want to do this, and in school you'd never read your textbook before going to class or anything except like when you're in exam or something. But at VASA you have to like keep up with your reading, and you should do it because it like really helps with your grade, or like you can actually participate in discussion in class and stuff like that. So do your reading.
Oh, I second that completely. And ideally try to do your reading before the lecture. They'll usually give you kind of the recommended reading before a lecture. And a lot of people just save that up and do it before a midterm, but I say do it before the lecture. Yeah, Harsh, you had something?
Yeah, so I went to NPS in Bangalore, so it's maybe like 30 kids a class, and they basically force you to learn because the teacher knows you personally. And then if you go to a big place like Georgia Tech, some of your intro classes could have like upwards of 200 people. So the big difference is you're not forced to learn anymore. You have to learn on your own. And that's where the whole reading thing comes up. If you don't do it, the professor is not going to say, hey, you need to read or whatever. And then it can really build up on you. And and then you're there the night before and you have like 500 pages or whatever to read. So you aren't being forced to learn as much, and you have to try to make yourself do things on a schedule. Especially in bigger places. I'm not sure the smaller places, but in the big colleges, until your third year, the classes are so big that the professor might know you by face and you might speak with him or something, but he's not going to know if you are up to date with material. So
yeah, I totally second that. Sometimes in high school you get used to doing things at the last minute. That just doesn't work in college. It's absolutely going to be a recipe for disaster, because things will pile up and you won't have time to do it. So anything else on that, guys? Yeah, Ron?
So what you don't realize going from here to there is, because we have completely final exams, and I guess a formative in most places is how it works, but over there, homework counts for a pretty decent, sizable portion of your grade. At least for my classes, it was about 20%-ish to 20 to 25% was literally just a homework grade. So always make sure you're on top of your homework and doing that well, because homework is essentially like, at least for me, because I'm only in first year right now, homework is essentially like a free percent. That 20 to 25% for homework, you should be nailing like 100 by 100 on pretty much all your homework in at least for the basic intro classes you're taking. And Harsh is also correct for like the intro classes. At least for me, I had like 180 person intro classes, even in my tiny little school. So you need to, the point of going to officer is sometimes not only for questions, but also to make sure your professor just knows you. Because sometimes if you miss, like an A- to an A by 0.5% or 1% or something, if the professor has met you, seen you a couple of times, sometimes they're like, I like this kid, and then they move you up. That at least happened in my case. And for most classes also have recitation, or at least a decent amount of them do, which essentially you just go, the TAs are hosting something and they'll revise the topics, and they'll also give you a little worksheet. So for me, what I did, every first few recitations I'd go, and you should try and figure out which of the TAs is the most engaged or most likely to participate in recitation. Get their email and be emailing them questions, even if you can't attend office hours, because they also respond to questions through email. And you can get your doubts clarified like that.
Cool. So, all right, lots of good advice there about professors' office hours, TAs being useful, stay on top of your reading, time management. Any other kind of strategies? And Ria, I saw you had something to say.
No, I just wanted to add that I'm also from NPS, and I had 30 kids in my class, and then I went to Vassar, and my first semester, one of my class, I had like 7 kids in class, and that was also a shock for me, like the other way, where like we have participation grades, and the teacher notices if there's only 7 kids and you haven't done your reading and you're not participating. So it's like the other way where like, so just like do your reading, be on top of stuff, make schedules, use Google Calendar, all of that.
Yeah, and I heard you also say, like, just going to the professor's office hours can sometimes help you get advice about the questions you should be asking in your research paper. I know other students have told me that sometimes professors or TAs are even willing to read your paper prior to it being due and give you advice on that. Also help you find out if you've cited appropriately. A lot of these colleges have very little tolerance for plagiarism, whether intentional or not. We've all heard nightmares about those experiences. So I think all new students should know plagiarism is something that, they don't take ignorance for an excuse. And so the more that you can kind of get your work vetted prior to it being due, the better you're going to be on that. Nahal, did you have something to add to that? I saw you nodding about the smaller classes as well, which, I know that's an interesting perspective, that small schools don't afford you to kind of be anonymous, and you often kind of have to be engaged.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The one thing that's I feel pretty different than in high school is that no one's going to do your homework and like hope you saw Rohan said, because it's a large part of your grade. I had a friend actually who like didn't do homework for one of his classes, and it cost him his A, even though he was doing grading exams. So just pay attention to this. And most classes will have a syllabus that say exactly what grades are coming from where, and like you could have participation grades or projects and stuff. I'd recommend looking at that and then just seeing how much time you need to devote into each thing.
Cool. So it got a little choppy there in the middle, but I think to summarize, Hall was basically saying, be aware of what all is encompassing the grade you're going to receive. It's not only based on an exam. A lot of times there's participation, homework, and he had a buddy who missed an A grade because he didn't do homework, but was doing very well in the class otherwise. These are all great tips. I'd also point out, I think all of your schools have support for like writing labs and math labs and computer labs. So, a lot of times students don't take advantage of those things in the first semester, don't even know about them. One of the things you can be doing this summer is really kind of cataloging all the different kind of support that your college has, getting to know exactly where you need to go or where you should go. And I think things can be a little bit less hectic in the first semester. So, it should be. Don't try to challenge yourself by taking too many courses in the first semester, because transitioning itself can be its own course. But go and find out everything. What Ria said about the professor's office hours, I only figured out in my third quarter in college. And I had this impression because the professor's so important, and like Harsh, I was in classes of 700 students. And so I was like, I don't want to go bother the professor with my stupid questions. And when I actually ended up going, not only was there not a line around the corridor, but she had like a big bowl of candy to entice people to come and see her, because she's bored sitting in there by herself. And I think that's a little more characteristic of large schools, that there's a blanket of complacency of I don't have to do things because nobody recognizes if I'm even in class. But I would take it to the other extreme and say, use everything, that you're paying for it. So use every resource that you've got. Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah, I just wanted to, sorry, this just popped into my head, but professors, at least in my school, notice when you are on your laptop rather than writing down on a piece of paper. If the teacher has given the option of either using a laptop or a piece of paper, you are paying, at least for most people, so much damn money to go to college. It does not hurt for you to sit for those 50 minutes in your classes, take out a piece of paper, like, your notebook, and literally be writing stuff that the teacher says down, because they really notice, for at least sometimes, or maybe you're a little unlucky, but they really notice if you're on your laptop. And a lot of teachers sometimes will assume if you're on your laptop, you're definitely not paying attention a large portion of the time. And it's normally just a big deal to teachers if for professors to have a good impression of you.
Cool. And something I used to do back when the dinosaurs and I went to college was I would record the lecture, and we had these like little micro cassettes. But now there's so many ways to record, and I wouldn't necessarily listen back to the whole lecture. If you heard it, you heard it. But I would do it mainly because if it's a large lecture hall and an hour-long lecture, inevitably you're going to be spacing out at some point. Or sometimes the professor goes into something so deep you have no idea what they were talking about. So I would just kind of jot down, what time during that hour did I start thinking about lunch instead of what they were talking about. And then I have that as a backup. And then to Rohan's point, that allowed me a little bit more flexibility to not feel like I had to write everything down. I could kind of start following the flow of the lecture and, jot down kind of an overview of it. So I found that worked really well. And heck, you guys got a lot more recording abilities than I had in my day. All right, if there's nothing else on kind of the academic side, and again, just to remind everybody, you can send me a chat for any questions specifically that you have about any of these areas that we're talking about, and I'll ask them. Yeah, Rohan.
About the recording point. So I may or may not have done this. And the thing is, it is slightly illegal to record nowadays if you don't ask the professor first. So if you are doing it, be very discreet and do not tell anybody.
All right, good tip, good tip. So I thought we'll move to, oh yeah, Harsh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying as long as we're on academics, I think the other big thing would be, at least it didn't really work for me, was they always have this rule that they keep talking about, which is like the 3-1 rule, where for every 1 hour you spend in a class, you spend 3 hours outside for that 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is, you start off and you're like, hey, this doesn't make sense. My class is really easy, but it really helps you build that discipline to follow through with that. And it really helps you in your last 2 years. I did this from semester 1 until the very end, and I graduated with a 4.0. And the single biggest thing I would credit with a 4.0 is doing the 3-1 thing. So it might sound stupid, but do it at the start, and it'll really, really help you build discipline for your hard years, which are usually towards the end. So yeah, I mean, I really can't stress on that thing enough. That's literally the reason I got it, nothing else.
So 4.0 at Georgia Tech, that's no joke. There's a question from the chat room about some schools require you to buy the laptop from their school. And is there any point in bringing your own personal laptop as well? I think that would be to you, Nahal.
At Rose, no, because the laptops we were forced to buy are very good. That said, if you're a gamer or something, a lot of people just bring their own PCs as well, because like it's better that way.
And that laptop you have is like, it's yours. It's not like it's not like an email address at TISB that it's kind of yours, but it can also be snooped on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose, but it like they're never gonna take it in unless like you give it to them for maintenance or something. So,
okay.
And yeah, after 4 years, you get to keep it.
Cool. And if you're a gamer, you should just stop that stuff. It's silly. Okay. On to the next, getting in the groove and getting settled in to college. So we talked a little bit about roommates and everything. What are, what would you guys say? I'm going to just kind of do quick shots at you. Anything you have to say about resident assistants? Who are they? What do you do with them? Do you want to be one? Communal bathrooms versus shared bathrooms. Yeah, let's start with that. Anything that you'd say kind of just about dorm life that was like, oh, wow, I didn't know about this until it happened. Yeah, Rohan.
All right, guys. So people are disgusting in communal bathrooms. This is like pretty much going to happen. Like overall, there's going to be a few disgusting people on your floor. For me, I didn't have a class when the housekeeping would come and clean the communal bathrooms. So literally the instant they were done, I would always go and take a shower pretty much because, God, people are like pretty disgusting. I learned that with my roommate. But you don't have to be like paranoid like me, but try. People are going to be a little bit disgusting. Communal bathrooms aren't always going to be the cleanest. Some people are going to go and throw like toilet paper around on the floor, stuff like that.
Now, can I just interject though? So you mentioned communal bathrooms. The school cleans the bathrooms.
Yeah.
But if you're in a shared bathroom setup where there's 2 dorms sharing a bathroom, I don't know if any of you guys had that set up, but don't you have to clean your bathroom yourself or just?
Yeah. So my friends, my sophomore friends live in those bathrooms. You have to clean those yourself. It may depend on the college. My college allows you for extra money along with your dorm fee to pay for a housekeeping person to come and clean those bathrooms also. But if it's a suite style thing in my college, normally you have to clean your own bathroom. And it's honestly not that big of a deal to do. You just make up a schedule with your friends and all of them just like figure out how to do it. That was how the people I know did it, and it worked out pretty well for them. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I found that's I guess it depends on the group of 4, and also maybe Ria as our sole lady on this panel, you can share that girls can end up taking a lot of time in the bathroom, so those shared bathrooms can sometimes not be the best. But anyway, what's your opinion, Ria?
So we have gender neutral bathrooms on our floor. And before going to Vassar, I was like, this is kind of weird. I don't want to like if there's girls using it and then also guys using it and everything. But I actually love it. And it's like this socializing place where like there's like 10, 15 of us inside and like everyone's kind of like talking and like, it's like fun and like, it doesn't affect me in any way. So like my mom was like freaked out about it and everything, but like once you go there, it's like totally normal and yeah, it's been great. So don't freak out if you have a gender neutral bathroom.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a kind of another whole Pandora's box of things to talk about in terms of, the various gender categories and, different pronouns that people want to be called. And, I think to Ria's point, just understand first and don't judge. And, eventually you'll kind of figure it out. It takes a little time.
Adding to that,
yeah,
we have something where like, even when you say your name, so I'll be like, my name is Ria and I go by she, her, hers. And then there's they, them, theirs, and he, him, his. So you always like say your pronouns because Vass is a very politically correct school. So that can be kind of weird and you don't ask people their pronouns. And when people say they, them, theirs, it's hard for you to like catch on and call them they, them, theirs because it's not he, him, his, and it's not she, her, hers. And it's hard for us because we haven't grown up in an environment like that. But yeah, like be mindful about it. Don't mess up people's pronouns because people get touchy about it. And yeah.
Cool. What can you share about like, I don't think it's completely foreign to students in high school here in India either, but drinking, drugs, partying, that kind of stuff. And I don't even know where to go with that, but just, anything that kind of surprised you, any advice you'd have for students who are going for the first time? Crickets. Yeah, Ron.
Yeah, so I'm not a party guy at all. I don't really do any of those things, but I do have friends in fraternities. And okay, so first of all, me saying I don't do any of those things, there's like no judgment. Like a lot of people in college do them and all those things, but
but that's a good point. Just to interject, Ron, it's a good point that there's also no judgment if you don't do things, right? I mean, which is a little different than here in India, where I think they kind of push you to do things, but in college, there's a little more respect for that.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really cares if you do or don't do those things. You're gonna have your friend circles, your outer friend circle, all sorts of things. But I have friends who are in like fraternities, and the thing there is just I've heard a lot of horror stories from the people who just went too far. So just try and be careful of what you're doing. If it's like your first time or anything, just like take it slow. Don't try and like kill yourself or anything while you're doing something like that because it's honestly not worth it. That's just me talking again. It's just be careful. That's probably just the best point I can make.
Yeah, I agree. Nihal, you're in a fraternity. Can you share anything?
I can't speak for all fraternities across the country.
Sure.
But at least most, well, you shouldn't join one where the people make you feel uncomfortable. That said, I don't think anyone's ever going to force you to, speak your drink. And if they do, the easy way out is just to stop talking to them if it's that important to them that you start becoming a stoner or something. Yeah, and frankly, you don't really need, like, if you're interested in joining fraternity, most places now I think have dry rush, so you'd get to know them without the alcohol and stuff, and it's not a deal breaker that you do drink or that you don't. Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Anything kind of on tips about like safety or concerns you have? Harsh, I see your hand up, and okay, sorry, I was stable here. Harsh, I remember when I visited Georgia Tech, some of the students said there are parts of the campus, around the campus, that are a little dodgy. So, what advice do you guys generally have about safety and things that students should be a little bit concerned or careful about? I'll start with Harsh.
Sure. So usually the campus police and all of that are really good about informing you what to do and what not to do. And for the most part, they'll tell you, hey, don't walk at night in these areas and this and that. So pretty much just go by what they're saying. I know at Georgia Tech, north of campus is really bad, like the northern edge and beyond that. There's also a lot of student housing there. And so one of the big things you do is you don't walk past there at night, because then you're asking to get mugged essentially. But what a lot of, at least my college, what Georgia Tech does is they have tons of buses all the time. During the day, I usually don't take them just because I prefer to walk and they're faster. But at night, they have buses that go on until 3 a.m. and then they start at 5 a.m. So at night, even if it's a short walk away, I try to take the bus. That way I'm avoiding walking in the shady parts of town. And that's what I do. And it seemed to work. I never got mugged. I had a friend who did at gunpoint, and that's pretty scary. But nothing happened to me. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes you have to, I guess, and you have to flip that coin. But if you can, try to keep an eye out for they even send you alerts. So I know Georgia Tech, every time there's an incident that happens on campus, they will send out an email. And as long as you're kind of keeping an eye on things, you know, hey, a lot of things are happening on this side of town, so like don't go there, stuff like that. And then the cops are really good about telling you what to do and what not to do. They also have these at Georgia Tech, they have these posts all over campus with essentially it's like an emergency button. So you hit that and then the sirens go off and the cops will come. So it's good that if you know you're gonna walk through a shady part regularly, it's good to keep a mental map of where those posts are and try to go by them, because those are also deterrents to people who want to try and mug you, because they know as well. Those are just some of the tips that I have.
Right. I think those are
and cities tend to be a lot more dangerous than more rural places. So maybe it's an Atlanta thing. Atlanta doesn't have the best crime statistics either.
Right. And those are the blue lights I think you're talking about. And I think if you pick those up, somebody will be there within like 30 seconds. A lot of the campuses also will have you can call security, and like a golf cart will take you back to your dorm if you're in larger campuses. You know, I know a lot of my old students who do that if they just have too many books to carry. Security, I'm not feeling safe. Take me back to my dorm. So, you know, again, like I said, these are all services that are there for you. You're paying for them. So don't feel guilty about using them. Anything else on safety, guys? Anything that you'd share? Yeah, Rohan?
Right. So my campus is generally safe, but what my friends from other campuses have told me is they follow the 1 a.m. rule, which is essentially after 1 a.m., if someone who you don't know is like close to you at a distance you don't feel comfortable for, or is about to talk to you, just run. Just like, or like call someone or something. They just follow that rule like pretty vigorously. There's like the 1 a.m. rule. They always remember it. A bunch of people on their campus just go by it. After 1 a.m., you just consider everything to be some sort of a danger to like your person if you're not with a group of friends or anything like that.
Cool. The next rocket round that I'm going to send out is related to kind of internships and also choosing or changing major, you know. So anything that you guys have to say on either of those things, challenges of getting internships, especially if you're an international student, you know, first year, second year, ways that, you know, I know both Nihal and Ria, you've, you know, leveraged your summers with internships back here in India, which helps to build your resume. And then, you know, third summer is a really key summer to get a good internship. Harsh, I know you went for a co-op. That's also a great way to, you know, show your worth to a company if those are opportunities at the school that you guys attend. So internships, choosing major, changing major, open it up to you guys. Anybody want to start? Any of those topics? So first of all, where would you go if you wanted to see what possible internships are available at your school?
So for us at Georgia Tech, the career fair every semester. So there's one in the spring and then there's one in the fall. And I would recommend as soon as you start, even if you aren't actually looking to apply for an internship, just go to the career fair. It kind of takes one variable out of it for when you do want to go and speak with employers, because then it is a new setting. It's a familiar setting, and then you just have to focus on the guy and try to sell yourself instead of figuring out how this thing works and who else there. So yeah, I'd say the job fair is the easiest place to go and try to get something, and you should start familiarizing yourself with with however your college does it right from the start. That's how I found mine. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Rohan?
Yeah, so the job fair point is a really good one. Also, I'm also doing an internship this summer after I got rejected pretty much from almost all the places I applied, because as a freshman, they're not really too inclined to have you intern over there. So you can get unpaid ones in the US, I'd say. That's not very hard to get. But then you have to find a place to stay and everything. So if you have relatives there and you can apply for unpaid internships around the area, I'd recommend that, you maybe try and live with them and you try and work something out, because that would probably look good. So yeah, I'm interning over here this summer, and pretty much just what one of my friends did was my mom got me my internship. It's sort of sad, but you just gotta leverage whatever connections you have. If your parents are probably gonna have some connections, relatives, uncles in your neighborhood, aunties, whatever. Try and leverage those connections. See if you can get something going. My friend was interested in microfinance. She literally took her resume, looked up all the small banks in Bangalore around her area, and just emailed her resume out to everywhere. And she ended up getting an internship over the summer. So even if you don't think there's too high of a chance, just take your resume and email it out to places, because a lot of Indian small banks are looking for unpaid interns to help them out with a little bit of basic research.
Awesome. Ria, Nahal, you have anything? Yeah, Ria?
Yeah, in terms of choosing classes and your major and everything, you're going to apply to a school and you'll tell them that you want to do a certain major, but be open to changing that major. Don't be stuck to that major. At the same time, you should experiment with your classes, but don't go too crazy. I did this random music class or music history of America or whatever, and I shouldn't have done it because it doesn't add any value, and it was hard because I have no clue. Firstly, I don't know about history in America, and then it was music history and stuff like that. So talk to seniors, go on surveys and everything, and choose your classes wisely. And yeah, and be open to changing your major. And in terms of internships and everything, go to your career development office or whatever kind of office you have for careers. It's not something you would do, but go, and they really help, and they'll help you polish up your resume and help you with cover letters, because cover letter writing can be really annoying. The more places you apply to, you have to keep writing different cover letters. So yeah.
Awesome. Nahal, you have anything to add?
Sort of building off the courses stuff. As soon as you get there, meet your academic advisor if you get one, or somehow figure out what classes you have to take, which you have to take when, in order to graduate, and then what you can kind of experiment with. If you've got a bunch of free electives, try to understand from them how many of those you might want to take for paper classes that are just easy A's, and how many of those you might want to take that'll be a bit harder but might actually add value. And then one thing that I, at least very common at my place, use Rate My Prof to see who the professor is, because it makes a huge difference. It can be the difference between really liking a subject or a field and then just wanting to drop the class after a week.
Right, so that's ratemyprofessor.com, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times schools will have their own internal ratemyprofessor.com type service as well. So you can look at what that has. And then just to reiterate what Nahal said about both Nahal and Ria, just talking to your seniors, or in some cases you can go in and audit a class if you're thinking that you want to take it. I remember I thought I wanted to take a philosophy class, but I went in there, and first I was excited because everybody had beards. I was like, yeah, my brothers. But yeah, it wasn't for me. I was totally lost. So good idea to kind of take a look at those classes before you actually join them. Yeah, anybody else? Yeah, Ria?
And really quickly, there's something called, so different courses have different policies, but Vassar has something called a non-recorded option policy, where you can take a class, and then if you're really interested in it but you don't think you'll do well in it, you can like give a boundary. So you can say B minus or like A minus, and if you get anything below that, they'll just pass or fail you, and if you get anything above it, it'll appear on your transcript and like impact your GPA. So that really helps.
Wow.
But you can only take 4 of those, and everyone saves it up for senior year and like junior year, but you should do it before that when you're trying to experiment with classes and stuff like that. So yeah, so you should like find out about all of those things.
Wow, I have not heard of that. That is so cool. I mean, we had pass, no pass classes, but I love that you can kind of just say what you predict you're going to get, and then no danger. So there's a question from yeah, go ahead, Rohan, Rohan and then Harsh. Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah, so what Ria said about the pass-fail thing, how it works at my college is you literally just pass-fail a class. At the end of the semester, you get your final grade. You go to the academic center and you just tell them whether or not you want to keep the grade you were given, or do you want to make it a pass. So you got an A minus, you want to keep the A minus, go ahead. You want to keep it as a pass, go ahead. It's just whatever you want. And I went in as a pre-med. Well, like I applied undecided, but I was pretty much sure about pre-med when I went into, my freshman year. Probably might remember that. Now I in my between first and second semester, I've taken a philosophy class, a law class, a psychology class, an English writing class, and then econ and business. So in the end, I've decided on like economics and business, but try and experiment a lot with the intro classes because you do have the option of doing that in your first and second semester. Also, they're pretty easy classes, so you won't feel much stress when it comes to getting your A's or A minuses or whatever you're trying to go for.
Cool. Yeah, Harsh, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so I was going to talk a little bit about co-ops because everyone knows what an internship is, but before I went, I didn't know what a co-op was, and I was assuming a large number of people wouldn't. So a co-op is essentially an extended internship. It's a long internship. Some places have it as 2 semesters. Georgia Tech has 3. And depending on the major, I think it's a lot better than an internship. So for instance, I'm studying, or now I guess I am a mechanical engineer. But it's such a broad topic that if you do want to do an internship, unless you've taken classes that focus you towards that one industry, then you aren't really going to do that much in 3 months or 4 months, because you're going to spend the first 3 months just trying to understand what's happening there. And a lot of people, especially from India, that were my friends, were very averse towards the idea of a co-op. And they said, well, I'd love to do 5 internships or 3 internships at 3 different companies. And at the end of it, they sort of knew what each one did. And each company sort of knew how they worked. But mostly they just went there and learned what the company did for 3 months and then worked for 1 month. What I did with my co-op is I was there for a year. And the first 3 months were pretty useless. And then the last 6-7 months, I really, really contributed a lot towards them and built up a relationship and actually understood what was happening. And to me, that was a lot more valuable than just kind of getting a lot of numbers in, but without getting any quality. And of course, this is very dependent on what you already are an expert on, which industry you're going to go into, and then what your major is. It may not apply, but don't be averse to the idea. So, and I love the people I worked with, and I've had a job waiting for me for like 1.5 years just because they love me and I love them. But it takes time to build that up, and you can't really do that as an internship, depending on the major. So it's an alien concept to me. It was, at least, and I would encourage people to think about it.
Great, awesome. There's a question from the chat room about double majors. Do people generally choose a second major that complements their first, or is it good to take something that's different than your first major to show a broader breadth of your education? And I guess I would just kind of add on to that question that, like Ria said, and Rohan iterated, you kind of go into college with a certain expectation of what you're going to study, but, a lot of times plans change. I've certainly always enjoyed meeting students a year or 2 later and asking what they're actually majoring in. And I don't usually find that changes 180-degree turn, but, always interesting to see that you're exposed to so much more when you get into college, but what specific advice do you have about keeping your eyes open? Also, the challenges of taking a double major, of doing a double major. Anybody? Yeah, Priya.
In terms of whether you should have diverse double majors or whether they should like go along with each other, so I'm doing neuroscience and econ, and like they don't overlap, but you need to find a way that like you can apply them maybe later, and that's what like my career counselor had told me, and it did help. Like, don't take two majors which are completely different unless you're like really interested in both of them, because it gets really hard later. And also, at least in a liberal arts school, like you might feel pressure to take a double major, because a lot of people do take double majors, at least at Vassar, but don't do it if it's too much. And it also depends on how many credits you require to complete each of the majors. So if you're doing something like psychology, which needs less credits than like something like neuroscience, then it might make sense to do a double major. But if you're doing neuroscience, and then it just like plan your 4 years out before you decide to double major is what my advice would be.
Good advice. Anybody else? Yeah, Harsh?
Yeah, I would say, like she said, it requires a lot of planning. So I did a minor in finance instead of a double major, but I have tons of friends who did. And the key to it is just planning ahead. The way I look at it is, if you can afford to add a little more time, because it usually drags it out a little more. If you can afford to add a little more time and you're very good with time management, then why not? I mean, it's just a bonus. And in terms of whether, like you were saying, whether to do them such that they complement each other or whether they're completely different, I think what you intend to do in your future career is what should really dictate that. So I have a lot of friends who want to be in the technical field their entire lives. They know they love that stuff. That's what they want to do. And so they would do electrical engineering and mechanical engineering because those really complement each other. I don't want to be a technical person the rest of my life. I'd rather go up to management. And so for me, doing finance with engineering helps me move into that role rather than stay solely within the technical role, rise up that chain. So I think if you have an idea of where you want to go, then you can pick your second major or minor to kind of help you achieve those paths.
Great. Yeah. Nihal?
I was going to say, just if you want to do a double major, make sure that A, you can fit it in without having to like overload too much or push yourself harder than you really want to. And B, don't do it just for the sake of having it on your resume or something. Just actually be interested in it. Otherwise, it's not going to last. You're just going to hate it. And sometimes like double majors help, like because I have a friend who wants to go to research in computer science and math and that stuff. So he's he's actually triple majoring with software engineering as well. And it just helps him get like a broader understanding of things. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, so I think, a couple points to take away. There's like from what Rohan said, I think sometimes, being open to changing a major or adding something on, as Harsh said, with finance, can just kind of extend the opportunities that you have. Just like you have no idea what you're actually going to major in college when you start off from high school, you don't really know what career path you're going to go down either. So it can be a good way to just broaden those paths. And, I know Ria was describing to me that she's doing neuroscience, but almost has kind of a path towards business with that particular major as well. So lots and lots of different ways to apply what you study. Again, I think kind of connecting with students who are a bit more senior in your college and finding out what their paths are and what they're doing. The recruitment fairs, as they mentioned, that happen every every semester, is a great way to kind of just see what's out there. I have a lot of students who go to particular colleges, and in the first year or two, they see what kind of companies are coming and recruiting and what kind of students and majors are successful at getting those internships or work, and they might switch based on that. So lots to figure out. Well, I did want to kind of start rounding this up because I said it would be about an hour and a half. Is there anything, first of all, for those of you who are still here, if there's any questions, going to pop those over at me, but anything else that each of you four, anything that pops into your mind, just kind of random at this point, that you would have, that you wished it was advice you would have gotten, or you would like to have told the high school student of yourself a couple years ago or 4 years ago in Harsh's case? Anything that pops into your mind that you would share with everybody else? Yeah, Harsh.
Sure. So at least when I first started and I wanted to get some experience in, I wasn't getting any internships, and a good way to get some experience, an easy way rather, at least at a large public university, is to do research. So you become a research assistant. And back then I didn't know how high I wanted my education level to be. So of course I was gearing up to maybe do a PhD or at least a master's. And so when I did start doing my research, I didn't investigate enough into what the field of research was that the professor was doing, and who the exact graduate student was and what level that research was at. Because I was just looking to get something where I could put things on my resume and then get an internship. Later on, I decided that I didn't want a PhD. I just wanted a master's, and everything turned out great. But if you do want to get a PhD, getting your name on research publications, even as an undergraduate student, is very, very important. It's almost a barrier to entry. And I have 2 years of research under my belt, but no paper. I have tons of experience and I know these professors really well, but I don't have those research papers. So if I wanted to do a PhD, that would be a big barrier to entry. So I would recommend that if you do research, and your reasons may be many, I would recommend at least kind of making sure you know where the research is, at what stage it is, making sure that you can at least spend 2 to 3 semesters at the lab, and make sure it's a nice professor and all of that, so you can get some research publications out of it. That way, if it turns out 2 years later you say, hey, I want to do a PhD, at least you have some of these things that you can put there. Otherwise, it's really, really hard. So yeah, do your research, even if it's just you want to get something on your resume. Make sure it's not just wasted work almost if you want to do a PhD.
Awesome. Yeah, great advice. So basically, if you're even considering it, you're going to want to tap that in the first 2 to 3 years. I'd also just, that reminded me of something that I have a lot of students who think they just want to go directly on into a master's program, who, so they're not kind of hitting those recruitment fairs. They're not throwing their resumes out to potential companies. And then towards the end of the senior year, especially when they're seeing all their friends get these, great jobs, and they're thinking, oh God, I'm just going back to school next semester. They suddenly realize that they wish they would have found a job. So I think it's a good idea to kind of, maybe go on a dual path of looking to secure a job and, maybe also applying to graduate programs at the same time. So, that you have those options. You can always say no to one or the other.
Yep, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to work for 2-3 years, and then I know I'm going to do a master's. I do want to, and depending on your field, at least with engineering, waiting for 2 years and getting some work experience in does not hurt your chances if you want to just stop with a master's. If you want to do a PhD, sure, just go straight through. But it's not really that bad. I know typically in India, we just push all our education together and then start work. But if you're unsure, then I would recommend for 2-3 years and then do your master's rather than just jumping into it and doing something that you essentially would be wasting 2 years of your life on that you wouldn't be interested in.
Awesome. So any other last minute advice? Yeah, Rohan?
About the master's and PhD thing. So what my dad always recommends for the master's degree is your best bet is to go and work in a company for 2 or 3 years, and then a decent amount of the time in like the economic world, or like if you majored in economics and go and work in a bank or something, the bank or whatever institution you're working for will sometimes offer to cover a portion or to cover the full fees for your master's degree, as long as you come and work for them after you get your master's. So that's normally a pretty good option for people who are at least going into economics, in my opinion, if you want to take that up instead of going directly to your master's slash PhD. And about the thing before for taking two varying double majors, um, my dad and also like because he does a decent amount of hiring for JP Morgan, and he says that the double major, spread out thing, a lot of the time, unless you're like Ria and you understand what you want to do in the future, it doesn't make too much sense to go and just do two random ones. Also because the courses aren't going to align. You're going to have a ton of work. Your GPA might be affected if you're not able to like complete your work like super well, and sometimes the company just won't even care that you've done another major in some field that they don't care about. All they're going to see is you have some sort of work ethic, but you probably could have done that if you just took a minor in a subject too.
Okay, good advice. Anything else? Okay, well, I really appreciate all four of you coming on for this, and for everyone, I know some people showed up a bit late. I'll have a recording of this, and I'll send that link out. And if you missed the amazing improvisational dance that Nahal did at the beginning, you definitely should watch it over again. It's going to be amazing to see. And I'm sure all four of these guys would be actually willing to, answer any other questions. So you can either, I guess you can route it through me. And thanks again, guys. I'll probably be in touch with you about some personal interviews that I want to do on this and record them, because I'm really psyched about kind of creating a library of resources. But I really appreciate this time that you guys gave me, and appreciate all of you guys who joined. See ya. Thanks, guys. Bye.